Alright guys, Akash here with Necessity. Today behind me is a 2002 Nissan Skyline GTR R34 in original Millenium Jade. If you guys don't know what this car is, you are living under a rock because this is the final form of the ultimate Japanese machine. It is one of the best looking cars ever made and one of the most iconic cars. If you don't know this car from Fast and Furious, you probably know it from Gran Turismo. And if you don't know it from Gran Turismo, you know it from Forza. It's one of the most iconic cars ever and it's become a blue chip collector's car, especially this M-Spec NER in Millenium Jade, which only exists 144 examples. Today was our lucky day. We had the opportunity to meet Naresh, and we're gonna get to talk to him a little bit on today's episode of AutoEssence. How are you, Naresh?
I'm well, I'm hot.
I know it's a very limited production R34. It probably is one of the rarest 34s ever.
It's definitely one of, so there's very few trims that are more rare, but it is a 2002 Nissan Skyline GTR R34, because it's 2002, they stopped making 33s by then. But this particular spec is called an M-Spec, and it's an M-Spec NER on top of that, so I'll break that down for you. The M is for Mizuno. Mizuno was the designer for the R34. So what Nissan did was they decided to, at the end of the run, make a tribute edition. And so they made the M-Spec NER. So the M-Spec was a tribute to Mizuno designer, and then the NER was for Nürburgring because it had the record at the time. So it was a tribute to that whole era where Nissan just crushed everybody else. On top of that, there's the V-Spec NER, right? So the difference between the two, they made 285 of these, and they made about 750 or so. It's in that ballpark of the V-Spec NERs. So NERs combined, just over 1,000 combined, 285 of these. The V-Spec was much more track-oriented, much more sporty. The M-Spec NERs was just as sporty, but the aesthetics of it was a little bit more luxurious. So case in point, the seats on this are leather, as opposed to the sport cloth seats. The hood on this is a little bit different compared to the V-Spec NER, where that's carbon fiber with a vent in it. So subtle, other than the badge, there's subtle differences between the two. They're both NERs. This is the lower production one. Of the 285, 144 of them were in Millenium Jade. Up there as iconic with the R34, you'd find Midnight Purple and Millenium Jade. That could be an argument by itself, which is better, but you can tell where my passion lies. This particular spec has things like from factory audio less. So when you look at it from a pure spec perspective, it's one of 23 that was ever made. So it's a pretty special car. This particular car has right now 33,000 kilometers on it. So it is, think of 2002 with 33,000 kilometers is pretty rare. It's collector grade for sure.
It is. And the R34 in general, as of this last 3 to 4 years, it's a blue chip collectible car.
Yep.
There's no way around it. It is just as valuable as the Ferraris and Lamborghinis of that time.
I'd say even more in some cases, right? R34s, largely because they just became legal to be imported into the US,
right,
surged in value. And because of the video games and the movies, all these things, there was definitely a hype to it. You want more what you can't have, and that's typically what happened in the US here. But when you get into specs like these, this is, from a value perspective, this is comparable to some of the, not hypercars, but definitely the upper echelon of exotics. I think why it is so special to actual enthusiasts is because they were ahead of their time. They're just, I drive this car today, and it's bone stock, right? The engine's not modified. But I drive this car today and it's so fun to drive, and to think, while it looks and feels and smells like a new car, this was from 2002. And imagine this car in 2002 was just beyond its time.
Well, this is not just any ordinary 34. Like we said, it's low production, but it's also got a plethora of Nismo parts all over it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some really special stuff on this car, things that you would barely ever see on any other R34. I mean,
yep. So I wish I could take credit for it, but I'm the type of car guy that likes to drive, right? I like to enjoy the cars, I like the aesthetics. I'm not the gearhead. I can't get into, I know enough to be dangerous. So my really good friends at Drag International were the ones who, when it comes to JDM, they're the de facto. They're the, some of the best builders in the country.
For sure.
They put this car together. The wheels are one of 20 ever made. This car is relatively stock from a mechanical perspective, but it's got some bits added onto it for aesthetics and, you know, some minor upgrades, I'd say. The Nismo intercooler is pretty cool. Again, the wheels, the seats have the Nismo covers on them.
Right.
There's a lot of parts to this car that Nissan discontinued some of these parts. We procured the parts and put them on the cars brand new. The car's new anyway. We just still got new parts and put them on there just to make sure the car is mint. You know, not just original new, but new. A lot of people are gonna wanna see what's under here.
I mean, yeah, of course.
So it is
all reliable, RB26.
There's a couple of things I wanna talk about under here. I mean, obviously the Nismo strut bar.
So Nismo parts catalog
titanium.
almost.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are
matched.
So it's not
valve cover.
It's not the same color. So
Very
I want you to look at
close,
this.
like.
Look at this color and look at this color.
Now I see
Two
what you're
different
saying.
colors. This
Right.
is more goldish, right?
This is more of a
This
green.
is called silica breath. So
Okay.
this color, I believe, we could check the registry on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they made about 7 M-Spec NERs in this color. Often confused with Millenium Jade. But every NER
Right.
has this color valve cover. That's one way to authenticate it. Now, if you look at the VIN plate,
Yes.
same color.
Oh, and that comes factory the
Not
same
blue.
way as well.
Think of a VIN plate in another car, probably blue.
No, right,
black,
yeah.
Right, so that's probably one of the better ways to authenticate a real NER. If you glance over and you see that VIN plate is silica breath,
Yes.
look at it. Millennium J is right next to it. Clearly a different color. That's another dead giveaway. That's a real NER, as opposed to somebody putting a badge on the back of it. Nothing wrong with that, right? But it's the real thing.
For a car that's being driven, I mean, this engine bay is really clean.
Yeah, so let me tell you, my guy who owns Turbo Wax, the finishing company,
Right.
He actually himself took this car in for about 80 hours and went through every single surface on this car, paint corrected it, sealed it, ceramic coated it a few times. Every single surface in here.
Only 8 hours?
Every
Oh my
single
goodness.
surface. I mean, it's a little dirty right
He's
now.
a pro.
But you can almost feel how soft it is. I mean, that's how much love went into this car. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, and
right?
that's
But
the attention to detail that I
the
really
foam,
like.
It's still new.
Right, look at
Clearly,
that.
foam after a couple of years starts disintegrating. So the car is really a work of art.
Like you were mentioning before, this car is like basically untouched internally, right?
Yeah.
You had a word for it.
So yeah, mechanically it's unmolested.
Unmolested.
So, you know, a lot of guys get a JDM car,
Right.
and they want to build it, right? And that's a lot of, you know, the excitement in a JDM car, the opportunity to make it into a monster that it could be that it never was, right? That's
Right.
the cool thing about them. This particular car is completely unmolested, meaning the actual engine has never been modified.
Right.
So it has some bolt-ons, obviously, like the Nismo intercooler. The strut bar is an add-on,
Right.
but the engine is a stock engine. Never been, you know, there's never upgraded turbos on here. There was never port and polish, any of that stuff. It is like it came off the factory.
Let's check out the interior a little
absolutely.
bit. There's plenty of Nismo goodies in there.
A lot of parts in here actually kind of mirror the same concept that we did on the hood, where it is, you know, Nismo upgrade. So the seats, you'll see the covers have the Nismo emblem on it. That's relatively rare.
Right.
Obviously the Nismo mats. The reason this is important, Nismo is the performance aspect of Nissan. It's a brand, but in this day and age, even the availability of these things,
Very
even though it's
scarce,
just
very
a
elusive.
stick, right? It's
Yeah.
very hard to come by.
Yeah.
So it's outfitted really well. We, you know, pretty much it's a new cockpit.
I mean,
you can look at it yourself.
Exactly. Like literally, even historically, Nismo was the catalyst in getting the
Did you
GTR.
smell 2002 for a second there?
Which is, yeah. I went back in time, like you were saying, it's a time machine.
Yeah,
I
no.
feel the vintage Nissan.
It still smells
feel.
like the car was brand new when it was delivered.
Very nice seats. But yeah, as I was saying, there is no Nissan Motorsport. There is no R34 lineage or any GTR pedigree without Nismo.
No, Nismo is
They
part of their
sent the
DNA.
GTR
exactly.
racing. Yeah.
This is just you know, outwardly adding those add-ons that tastefully level it up some more. All right, check this out. This is some ASMR stuff here.
Ooh, that was smooth.
You never noticed that before.
That
I
was
closed
really
it a few
smooth.
times, but it just sucks that door in and it sounds so satisfying.
One more time, guys. One more time. To open it, so even the opening the door is so quiet
Yeah.
and graceful. This is M-Spec. Let's M-Spec it
give it a little bit more.
I think so. This is M-Spec NER, guys. Ta-da. This is
Pretty
what the
wild.
M-Spec's all about, guys.
Yep.
Before we get to the wheels, tell me about your brand, Boost Happy. I mean,
So
there's a lot
Boost
going on
Happy
there.
actually is my son's brand. So he actually, loves cars just like I do, right? It's kind of in our DNA now, but he wanted to put his own touch on the car scene, and so he created the brand Boost Happy, and it's really a lifestyle brand. So, obviously the turbos lend to it being, favoring the car culture.
Yes.
But boosting happy is a positive, is to build positivity as well, right? So kind of spreading positivity and happiness for.
I love that.
So there's a couple of sides to it, but we put on shows, meets, sponsor events, things like that.
That's awesome.
Boost Happy is on Instagram. He's all over the place. He's actually doing a really big show in a couple of months, Supras versus Skylines.
Which is going to be awesome.
It's going to be epic.
Can't wait.
It's going to be epic, yeah.
As you were saying, you were about to go to the wheels, right?
Yeah.
Awesome wheels.
So the brakes are not stock, but this is a period correct upgrade for this car.
Really?
Right? They're not big brakes, but the Greddy brakes are actually very sought after. Just like
Especially
everything else on
gold.
here is a really,
The gold calipers.
yeah. They're just a really nice upgrade to the stock brakes.
Right.
And again, period correct. Now you could easily go, any random, endless big brake kits or whatever. This was, again, this is not a.
It's one
a
of
stock
those
car.
things. It was your commitment to that period correct.
To stay
and
period correct,
Yes.
preserving the car the way it was kind of intended with some subtle OEM plus touches.
No doubt.
There's something I want to talk about back here too. So you see these risers? This is stock.
Yes.
A lot of people get an R34 and they've replaced this with a carbon lip.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. This is stock. If you notice, look at some R34s, they put higher risers on this. So they're actually like way up here.
That's what
Looks
I've seen, yes.
Very cool.
But this is
But
actually
going back to
OE.
preserving the car the way it was
Yes.
intended as close as possible. That departs from really the look that it was intended for, right? So
It's a lot more low key.
the infamous badge. It's more subtle.
It's a lot more subtle.
Yeah, a lot more
Very.
subtle.
It's not inconspicuous, but it's still very low key.
Well,
I like
it
that.
doesn't. Yeah, I like the look. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
On the higher uprights, but this setup doesn't take away from the rest of the car.
Exactly.
Whereas you see one with a higher setup, and it just kind of your eyes are drawn straight to it, and it kind of dominates the rest of the car. This really sets the car up just right.
By the way, M-Spec NER badge, original badge, I'm assuming.
It's the real thing. Yeah.
It's the real badge. And I totally bet, guys, a lot of people that are watching this video have never heard of the M-Spec NER.
Yeah.
Because social media really loves the V-Spec NER.
Yep.
And the Z-Tunes and whatever.
Just nerves and the Z2.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, before this video, I'm sure a lot of you guys have never heard of the M-Spec NER. This is it. And as Naresh explained, there's a lot of really unique qualities to it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would take it over a V-Spec just for the heated seats.
I mean,
Just for the heated seats.
largely because it lends to being a little bit more of a luxurious ride
Right.
as opposed to a more visceral ride.
Yeah.
That's my style anyway, so it's a perfect fit for my personality. I just feel like I have one of the best examples in existence right now, and I'm just super grateful for that.
And I mean, yeah, it's a pleasure getting to see this car. And I mean, we're talking about visceral versus luxurious and this and that. I think there's only one way to find out. Now we got to go in the car and take it for a spin.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I have, I said I had Olin's
Right.
on it, but they're not fine-tuned because I don't really drive the car that much
Yeah.
to really dial it in. But Olin's are as good of coilovers you could spend money on.
There's people breaking their necks in their car right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking, because you're driving, you can't focus.
Yeah.
But I'm looking around and I'm seeing people just like, what the hell is that?
Absolutely.
2,500 miles a year, isn't that what it is?
That's
right?
the max, right? So show and display limits you to 2,500 miles
Right.
per year, and you're audited,
Yeah.
right? Realistically, if you use the car the way I generally use it, because I have several cars, it's not
Right,
like
no, I
I'm
know.
dailing the car. That's a lot of miles.
No, I mean,
It's a weekend.
when you've got plenty of
go
cars,
to show.
I mean,
yeah, I put 1,000 kilometers on this car.
Since
in
you've
the
had this
year
car.
I've had it.
since you've had this,
Kilometers.
1,000 kilometers, 400 miles, 450,
Exactly.
roughly 450.
Right.
I mean, wow, yeah,
And I drive it every time I want to.
right.
Happens to just be to shows and meets with my friends and things like that. I'm very conscious of where I drive it because it causes a ruckus every day. I would turn on the radio, but we don't have one.
There's no
if you
radio,
remember,
guys.
Remember I said it's one of 23. That's a spec from factory.
Right. Power delivery is very smooth though.
It's
all motor. I
so
mean, just no modifications.
This is stock.
It builds up boost pretty quick.
This was what in 2002. What you got right off the floor, off the factory. That's fun.
I know, and it's like.
And I'm not an aggressive driver, so I like cruising.
Even cruising in this car, you can tell this car has a lot of like.
No, it's awesome.
Untapped.
Yeah.
Performance, and it's like wow.
Yeah, if you remember, Nissan under-spec'd or under-published their specs, right? Back in the day.
Well, it was a gentleman's agreement.
That's well,
the
right.
276.
Except they may not have been pushing the envelope on that.
Yeah.
Because clearly it's a little bit more than what they said it was.
It was not just the 34, the 33 as well, and the 32.
Right.
I believe also.
Right.
As well as there's a few cars. FYI, guys. Toyota Supra, RX-7, Lancer Evolution, 22B STI. Because the other STIs didn't have as much power to even beat 276, but the 22Bs and then the GTRs. Those were the cars. FYI, history lesson. I have a question for you. How many times when you've been driving this car have you been approached to like race?
I can count less times that it hasn't happened. It's very, very common. Somebody will pull up and rev it, or that just happens all the time.
And it's like the car just, unfortunately, even though it's like we're enthusiasts, the car just attracts that much attention.
Yeah, and not just from JDM guys too. I've literally had full-on conversation at a light with people about, you know,
why are you sitting on that side?
I've had that too. Well, you're on the wrong side, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Hadn't heard that a million times.
Yeah.
But guys that are, you know, American car guys, they have appreciation for the cars. Yeah, just car guys in general. It's a unicorn in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
it's known by a lot. Oh, so if you've never owned a right-hand drive car, I screw this up all the time after years of driving these cars. Your stalks for your left and right turn signals, they're flipped.
Oh.
They're flipped. So if you were to just drive this car because you're not used to driving a right-hand drive car, you would be turning on the wiper when you're trying to go left or right.
That's weird.
Yeah. So I always equate it as the hand on the door is the signal.
Is it easy for you to like hop between left hand, right hand, like naturally?
Yeah.
At this point, you've kind of.
That's literally the only thing that I'll make a mistake once in a while.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
What does it take to have a car like this?
I mean, there's a couple of things, obviously, you know, to be able to afford some of these things, right? But
exactly,
you got to have the right people in your corner to be able to position you and position these things for you. You know, I mentioned my friends at Drag International, some of the best in the country when it comes to JDM cars, and I trust them wholeheartedly with everything about this car to deliver to me what is one of the most special cars in existence. But my background is technology. I own IT companies and various other businesses, but you know, you have to be entrepreneurial. You gotta do things that other people aren't willing to do to have what other people aren't gonna have.
Yeah. All right, guys, that wraps today's shoot. This was easily the coolest day of my life. I got the opportunity to drive in an R34, one of my dream cars. Such an exhilarating experience, and like it made me feel like a little kid. When we turned the cameras off and we started doing just regular runs without the cameras rolling, I started laughing like a kid. So I have to say that was like such an exciting experience. Shout out to TSC Naresh, and I'll tag him and stuff, guys. Check him out. So much cool stuff going on. He's got plenty of other cool cars coming along. He has a Nissan Z coming, a 240Z, so plenty of cool stuff coming along, so check him out. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please, of course, hit subscribe, hit like, set up the notifications if you want to. This is the very first episode of AutoEssence. I want to explain a little bit about what it's going to be, guys. This is our opportunity to meet more cool owners and do more long format videos, because personally, I really enjoy doing long format videos. We get so much more in-depth reviews, and we actually get to hear more about the owner's perspective, more than we normally do on Instagram and TikTok. So AutoEssence is going to give us the opportunity to interview these people a lot better, and we're going to meet so many cool people, guys, so stay tuned. There's going to be so many more cool cars coming, guys. Take care. All right, guys, we're back at it again here today with what the Sigma? Run it back.
Yo, go back.